is the TCS chart. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me know when you guys see it. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. So as I asked the question, have you guys analyzed this? So the first one is a typo. It should be the stock price. It is not in crores. But other than that, have you guys analyzed it? So my question was, if you see the profit growth for HCL for 5 years, CAGR is 20% and the revenue growth is also 19%. But let's focus on the profit growth. So profit growth for HCL is the best among the three, clearly. And it's not for 1 year, it's over a 5-year period because it's a CAGR. Everyone understands what is CAGR?
No, since for me, yeah.
No, sorry. No.
Actually, I googled it. It's a 5-year compound annual some. What is it? 5-year compound annual growth rate. It's I think compound rate calculated for the last 5 years. I think.
Correct. So CAGR is compound annual growth rate, but can you explain with a simple example, Srihari, how would you calculate it?
For example, in my first quarter, I made some 10% profit. And then in the next quarter, I again made some 10% profit. So I take a compound of it. I will add it.
Yeah, so can you explain with an example? So say 2015, my profit was 100 and for HCL, CAGR is 20%. So 2016, what will be the profit?
Here 100 in the sense it is a number or what is it?
Yeah, it's a number. Hypothetically, say HCL made a profit of 100 rupees in 2015. So what will be the profit for 2016?
In 2015, it made 100 rupees profit. And what will be the revenue growth in 2016? Profit growth in 2016, you mean?
No. What will be the profit in 2016? Yeah, growth is given, right? 20%. So 2015 profit was 100. What will be the profit for 2016?
120, something like that.
120, yeah.
120. What will be the profit for 2017?
120, 40. No, out of that 20%. No.
Every year 20%, is it?
Every year 20%. Huh?
Yeah,
120 is 20%, right?
Correct. So that is what is CAGR. So not 100. So basically CAGR means 2015 profit was 100.
Yeah.
It grew by 20%. So 2016 was 120. Now you will calculate on 120, not on 100. So on 120, 20%, it will be 24. So your profit for 2017 will be 144. For 2018, you will calculate on 144. So 144 plus 20% of 144, which is around 29. So 144 plus 29 will be 173. So that is the difference between simple growth rate and compounded, which means your amount is changing every year. Whereas in a simple formula, you will use 2015 as the base year and every year keep adding 2020. So means 120, 140, 160, 180 like that. But in CAGR, your base changes every year. Understood?
Okay, so which one is worth to consider? It's always the compound rate, right?
Yes, because you need to see year on year how much it is increasing, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now is it clear for everyone or still there is a doubt?
Yeah, it's clear. This compound profit is clear.
Okay, cool. So now tell me, so by that metric, HCL's profit has grown the highest. So ideally it should command the highest PE ratio, but it is not. What are the factors which is ensuring that HCL has a lower PE ratio compared to others? Everything is there in this chart. if you look carefully.
Actually, price to equity ratio is 17% for HCL. Actually, I mean, I did not go till that point. Actually, I was checking each terminology like stock price, market price, revenue, and net price, and I first checked the market price, and I calculated the market price is total number of shares into a share price, and I arrived at what are the number of total prices were total number of shares hold by company. That I arrived, and so now price to equity in the sense 17 times it increased. It's quarter or yearly? This is.
No, these are all yearly numbers. So price to equity means that if the profit is 100, the share price is 1700. Whereas for TCS, if the profit is 100, the share price is 2300. So TCS is getting a higher valuation. My question is why? Its profit is ideally, if you see logically, any company whose profit is growing the most should have the highest P ratio, right? That is what we discussed, na? That price to earnings.
If profit is 100, then you set kind of a formula over there. Can you please repeat that?
Okay, price to earning ratio is nothing but if your profit is 100, share price will be 100 into this, whatever is the number. So if this number is 17, which means your share price is 1700.
So you mean the share price was, it's a percentage, huh? You mean it's multiple times?
It is not a percentage here, it's a multiplier.
Multiplier, okay, yeah.
Yeah. But okay, don't go all that there. My question is, again, coming back to the question. When we discussed P ratio, we discussed that your P ratio is determined by the profit growth. So now if you see among the three, clearly HCL has the highest profit growth. But why does it have the lowest P ratio? What factors are pulling the P ratio down?
I can comment, Nishant, if nobody is commenting.
Sure, go ahead. This is open for everyone.
Just before you start, I mean, you probably have the right answer, but maybe the stock price is low for HCL. That's why the PE ratio is lower.
Correct, but why? The stock price is low is not correlated, right? Obviously, if the earning per share of HCL is 30 rupees and earning per share of TCS is 100 rupees, then obviously TCS stock price will be higher, right? Because stock price is a function of your earning per shares, and earning per share is the function of how many shares you have issued. But that is just a number, right? But the key metric here is profit growth, right? Your P ratio. So when we discussed, right, what did I say? That if a company's profit is growing 20% per year, its P ratio should be 20. If a company's profit is growing 6% per year, its P ratio should be 6. If a company's profit is growing 11%, its P ratio should be 11, something like that, plus minus 1 or 2. But here in this case, we see that although HCL's profit is growing 20%, its P ratio is 17, which is close to 20, but still Infosys only with a profit growth of 6%, it's commanding a P ratio of 19. And TCS with a profit growth of only 11% is commanding a P ratio of 23. Now that doesn't make sense to me. But then when I look at other metrics, it makes more sense. So I'm trying to understand from you guys, which are those other metrics determining that? Okay. So yeah, Nimit, you can talk.
Okay. Looking from this chart, it seems that the TCS is giving 3.5% of dividend. And since it is giving more dividend, people are more interested in TCS stocks rather than the HCL stock, which is giving only 0.8% of dividend.
Okay, so that can be one factor. Very good point, right? So this is what I wanted people to tell. So if you see, TCS is giving a higher dividend compared to others, and this is a dividend yield, okay? Which means if the share price is 100, TCS is giving 3.5 rupees as dividend. Infosys, on the other hand, if the share price is 100, is only giving 2.5 rupees as dividend. And HCL for a share price of 100 is only giving 80 paise as a dividend. So this tells us that your P ratio is not only determined by profit growth, but how well the company is sharing that profit. So your dividend yield is also a very important metric which determines your P ratio. Is this clear to everyone?
Actually, I want to break it down. Maybe you guys are aware, so I'll just break it down what you said. There are multiple things which you covered. First thing, what I don't remember, I don't know his name, but Amit Nimit or Nimit, he covered on the dividends. So TCS is giving 3.5 dividends. So it means for if the share price is 100, they are giving 3 rupees 50 paisa extra, right?
Not extra, as dividend.
Yes. Okay, then I don't know what exactly is dividend.
So dividend is like a share of profit which the company shares. So if the company makes profit, it has to give it out to the shareholder, which it pays out in the form of a dividend. So it's like you get interest for keeping money in the bank. For buying the share of a company, you get dividend.
Yes, so it's an additional amount which the shareholder will get for holding that share for whatever period of time.
It happens once in a year. Is it that they calculated?
It can be annual, it can be quarterly, it can be semi-annual. Different companies follow different rules. In much of the developed world, it is paid out quarterly. So like in Japan, it's a tradition to pay out dividends every quarter.
Okay, if the share price is 100, then the 3 rupees 50 paisa they will get here as an dividend, right? Per share.
Exactly. So if I hold one share and the share price was 100, I will get 3.5 rupees. So this is calculated on an average price. So obviously price changes every day in the secondary market, but this will be determined on the average price. So they will take the starting price, ending price of last year and do it an average and then say. So say last year TCS share price was between 100 and 130 throughout 2019. So they will do an average, take the opening price, closing price. I don't know how they take average. Some people take 6-month average, whatever. But they average it out and they say the average price throughout 2019 was around 115 rupees. So on that they will say, and they gave dividend of 5 rupees for 2019. So they will calculate as 5 divided by 115 to get that percentage.
Okay, I mean, I just want to understand. You gave a formula over here. So is it like it's a standard formula or it's a company will decide by themselves? Is there something regulated here? No?
No, it is a standard formula. So generally the average price is taken. I have shared that dividend yield formula. So you can go through it from Investopedia, how it is calculated. But it can be different for different people. So say you bought it at 100 and you got 3.5 as dividend. For you, it may be 3.5. Whereas I bought the share at 120, but I got the same dividend of 3.5. So for me, it will be 3.5 divided by 120. So it can be different for different people also.
You mean it is the price which I purchased. It is not at the price, the current market price is there.
No, for you, it will be different, right? I'm saying.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm saying. So it's the price which I purchased this share. It's not the current market price.
Correct. But generally for companies, they do an average price. But for you, you will look at return on investment, right? So dividend yield is nothing but how much you are getting on your investment. So if I buy a share at 200 rupees and I get 4 rupees as dividend, for me, dividend yield will be 2% because 4 out of 200 is 2%.
So then a dividend yield is on whatever is been invested, not on the share price.
No, correct. So share price is the rate at which you invest. 200 rupees is what you bought one share at. Anyways, don't get into that right now. I will confuse you. So we will cover these basic terms later. But basically the point to be highlighted here is, so my question was, what is determining the P ratio? So P ratio is determined by multiple factors. Maybe Srihari, if you want to note on a Word document and then share it. So P ratio is determined by multiple factors. First one among them is the profit growth. But profit growth is not the only factor. Dividend yield is also another factor that is determining the P ratio. But there is one more very important factor which I wanted to highlight. So I'm still
can
waiting
also-
for that.
I can come up. I can talk about that as well.
No, Nimit, wait. Let somebody else talk.
Sure.
So you mentioned 2 points here, the multiple factors. One is profit growth and the second one is dividend yield, right?
Yes.
Okay, and what is the third?
Also, you can write here that so basically this is impacting both your price to equity or price to earning. Actually, why do they say price to equity? Okay, it is price to earning or price to equity is same, and price to book value. Both these are determined by one, your profit growth, and the second one is dividend yield. But there is a very important third factor here, which is very, very important.
The stock returns themselves, right? Stock returns, if you see, it's very low, 5%.
Yes, stock returns is again a function of something, na Dipti? That is the question. So the profit growth is 20%. So my stock return should have been 20%, but it is not. Why? What is determining that?
So basically, stock returns are net profit divided by the stock, the market cap itself, probably. So net profit in absolute terms is lesser, although in terms of percentages, it is looking hunky-dory.
No, but absolute terms doesn't matter, right? Because in absolute terms, your stock price will also be lower, na? So say my profit in 2015 for HCL was 100, and with a P ratio of say 20, my share price will be 2000. Say profit for Infosys was 300, with a P ratio of 20, the profit will be the share price will be 6000. And for TCS, say the EPS was 500. With a P ratio of 20, it will be whatever 10,000. So that doesn't matter, right? See, point is profit is grown highest for HCL, but share price has grown the lowest. That is a clear anomaly, right? Ideally, my share price is a direct function of profit growth. Higher the profit growth, higher should be my stock return. But that is not being correlated here. And that is where the question came to my mind, that what are the factors determining? So as Nimit rightly pointed out, so although HCL is making higher profit, but it is not sharing with the shareholders. It is retaining all that by giving a very low dividend yield. So that is why the shareholders are punishing the stock price by not giving it good growth. That is one. And there is another very important factor from the chart.
How can shareholders punish the company by keeping the price low?
Because nobody is buying, right? See, why is the price less? Because the demand is not so much. How does the share price go up in a secondary market? Demand versus supply, right? Basic rule of economics. So more people want to buy a company share, the higher the price will keep going, right? So if today everybody wants to buy HCL shares, automatically in the next 1 month it will double. Why is Reliance going up? Because everybody is buying Reliance shares.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Nimit, over to you.
Yeah, it's the market cap. The TCA has the highest market cap, so it, and people wants to stick with the leader for the risk aversion. So basically, higher market cap, higher liquidity is the another key.
No. That is not the real determining factor here.
Okay.
It can be a little bit, but ideally a higher market cap should be a negative, right? If you look at it, because already TCS has a larger share of the wallet.
Yeah, but from my perspective, people in India specifically wants to have a risk, less risky options. So TCS comparatively to HCL is a less risky option for them, right?
Not really, right? Maybe not. But there is a very important factor which nobody talked about. So I will talk about it now. I had talked about it in WhatsApp also. So you see this return on equity. Mm-hmm. This is the key metric that is ensuring that HCL has a lower stock return in spite of very good profit growth. So if you see, HCL has a return on equity of only 24%, whereas TCS has a return on equity of 38%. Which basically means for every 100 rupees as capital that HCL has, it is able to generate only 24 rupees as profit, whereas Infosys is generating 25 rupees as profit, which means around 4% higher than HCL. Okay, so for a 4% higher return on equity, its share price return has been about 40% higher, because compared to 5% return and 7% return, it's a 40% higher. Whereas for TCS, it is instead of 24, it is giving 38, which is roughly about 60% higher ROE. Okay, 40 not for 24 is about 60%, but its stock return is almost double. It is giving double the return, so almost 100% higher return for 60% higher ROE. And if you see the P ratio also, TCS P ratio is about 35 to 40% higher than HCL. That is directly proportional to the return on equity. So basically, the point I want to highlight here is your P ratio is determined by your profit growth, by your dividend yield, and also your return on equity. And this is a very, very key metric. And if you see, all three are in the same industry. So all these being service companies, ideally the ROE should be really high. And these numbers are really, really high if you compare it to banks or any other industry. And these are zero debt companies. So if you see, they have zero debt. In fact, HCL has a slight amount of debt. Then why is ROE so low for HCL? If we should dig deeper on that. So for that, I have opened the balance sheet of the three. So let me share that. Is this point clear to everyone, or you still have a doubt?
I like to understand what is the difference between this return on equity and the stock returns. What is the difference between these two?
Return on equity is basically the amount of money that the company is earning for the amount of capital it has. Okay, Venkat, you'll have to go through some of the previous videos. Okay, so or else what I can do is I will arrange a separate session. Okay.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
I will have to. So I will try to highlight here. So this is HCL's balance sheet. Okay. So if you see, HCL has also a small amount of borrowing compared to the others, which is really strange when I looked at it. But let's focus on the only the equity part. So for HCL, the total equity is 51,686. Now let's look at, this is in crores. Okay. So for 51,686 crores, and this is for the latest quarter. No, June 30th is on the right side. Okay, so let's look at June. So for about 54,913 crores of equity, let's see how much profit it generated in the year. Okay, or maybe let's take the March one to calculate the yearly profit. So 51,686 is the equity. Let's see if it has the annual number or the quarterly number. No, this doesn't have the yearly number. So let's look at the quarterly number only. I will just annualize it. So for the quarter ended June 30th, it made around profit of 2,900 crores. So if I annualize it, it will be 11,600 crores. Following me? Hello?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. You multiply it by 4, right?
Yes, I have just multiplied 2,925 into 4. So it is 11,700 crores to be exact. Okay. So
Yeah.
11,700 crores profit on shareholder equity of 54,000 crores, 55,000 crores. So Srihari, can you do a quick Excel formula? 11,700 divided by 54,913.
11,900.
11,700
Okay.
divided by 54,913.
0.213.
Into 100.
21.3.
So that is the ROE for HCL. Okay, is everyone clear with that? Which is even lesser than the previous chart. From 24, it has gone down to 21. Is that clear to everyone?
So it's profit divided by equity. What did you do this?
Yes. So ROE is basically your net profit after tax. So PAT, profit after tax, divided by your shareholder equity. Okay, that formula was shared. I will share it again after this session.
No, I noted. Thanks.
Anyways, I'll share the link as well. Is this clear to everyone what I did?
Yeah.
Okay. How much is it, Srihari? Just save it, huh? 21 something it came, right?
21.3.
Okay. Now tell me what can HCL do to increase this? So instead of 21.3, what it can do to increase its ROE? There are two ways to do it.
Increase the net profit or decrease the shareholder equity, I guess.
Exactly, correct. So now increasing profit is not possible because obviously it is a function of the business. So what can it do to decrease its capital?
Buyback.
Share buyback can be one. What else?
A stock split?
Stock split will not reduce your capital, right? So share buyback is probably the only option to reduce it. Okay, but because this balance sheet is not very clear, ideally this total stockholder equity is wrong. It will have stockholder equity and there is something called reserves and surplus. Okay, so whatever money is lying in reserves and surplus, to reduce that, what it can do? Deepti, don't answer, okay? Let someone else answer. So ideally what I'm saying is, if you see my screen, right?
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So this thing, total stockholder equity, is not very perfect. It has multiple things in it. So it will have something called share premium or share reserves and surplus or retained earnings. People who have attended previous sessions should remember it. Okay. So one of you please explain. It will be good for Venkat also. What is retained earnings? Okay, I have pulled the fact sheet. I have not pulled the detailed balance sheet. Let me try to pull a detailed balance sheet if needed. But fine, we know that it will be including that. So what can be done to clear that up? I will search for HCL. Except Deepti, anyone can answer.
Pay dividend.
Pay dividend, correct? So that will have two impacts, right? What we just discussed. Can you see the other screen now? This chart.
Now we are seeing keeping the global lifelines running or something.
Okay. There is a problem. Okay. Anyways, in the chart, because if I'm sharing my desktop, but I'm sharing my desktop. In the chart, we had this dividend yield, right? So the moment HCL starts paying more dividend, it will have two impact. Its dividend yield will go up and its stockholder equity will start going down. Okay. And that is what I wanted to highlight by paying dividend yield, because they might have kept a lot of money in retained earnings. And that you will get to know from here. If you see here, they will have cash amount. So they have around 4,000 crores as cash. And then they have term deposit. Term deposit is nothing but fixed deposit and all which they have kept with banks. So that is another 5,000 crores. So that is 9,000 crores. Then they have securities available for sale. So this is basically they have bought some other company's shares or bonds or NCDs or whatever. That is another 6,000 crores. So 6 plus 5 plus 4, 15,000 crores is just lying there. Plus, we discussed, right? Debt to equity ratio can be up to 1. Whereas if you see this company, its equity is 54,000 crores. And how much is the debt? Only 5,000 crores. So they can easily go ahead and borrow 10,000 crores from the market. And today, if they approach any of the large banks, say HDFC Bank in India, they can easily get at 7%. So for a 10,000 crore loan, they will only be paying maybe 700 crores as interest, which is not a loss, because they have enough and more profit to cover for it. So that will again juice up their ROE. Is this clear for everyone? So basically for HCL, the question was what steps they can take to increase their ROE. So there are two: either go for a share buyback or increase dividends. And to fund the share buyback, they can also raise debt.
Why not? No, they have enough cash, right? So by using cash, they will. Can they not use their lying cash to buy back the shares?
Yes, they can. But if they want to buy back more, because see,
Okay.
these numbers are at par value. Okay, what we discussed yesterday. So the stockholder equity that you see here is not the market value. So 54,000 is the stockholder equity, but the market value will be much higher, say around 2 lakh crores. So ideally, to reduce 10,000 crores of stockholder equity, they will have to spend 40,000 crores. Clear questions? No. Okay.
I think it's
So
clear.
similarly, if you look at TCS, Srihari, do the same thing. So for TCS, it is this number is in million. So you take it in crores. So you put 86240. Okay. This is the, and then let me see the profit. Okay, your profit will be 8131 into 4.
You did not multiply.
Sorry?
Can you please repeat that? I lost.
8131 into 4. No, sorry. This is previous year. 7008 into 4.
And this is 28,032. What was the first this thing? I think 80,000 something it was there, right?
This is 86240.
6240.
And so now what did you get? 28 something, na?
2832. Yeah.
Yeah, so divide that by this.
$3.076.
How much is the denominator? 86,240, right?
Denominator is 86,240.
Yeah, and what is your numerator? 28,000, na?
2832. 28,032.
So 28,032 divided by 86,000 should come 0.3 something, right? Or how much is it coming?
It's 0.325, I think. 0.325.
Yeah, 0.325 into 100. So that is 32.5.
32.5.
So it is way higher than HCL even now. So you see TCS ROE is 32%, whereas HCL was 21 something, right? How much was it for HCL?
21.3.
Yeah. So see, that is the difference, right? So that is what is ensuring that HCL is continuing to give you higher stock returns. Yeah, I think that was the key point I wanted to highlight. Then you can use the same formula to calculate for Infy also. And for all these companies, the same rule is applicable. If they want, they can still reduce their stockholder equity and increase this number. So even TCS can do the same. Because if I look at TCS balance sheet, again, if you see here, they have cash of almost 8,646 crores. They also have 26,356 crores of investment. And they have other current assets of 14,895 crores. Chalo, I will not go there, but just investment and this cash is a lot of money. 26,000 crores and another 8,000 crores, so roughly 34,000 crores. So even TCS can utilize this to give either higher dividend or go for share buyback. And then the one interesting thing compared to HCL is they have zero debt. So they could borrow some 10,000, 20,000 crores or 50,000 crores from the market and use that also for a share buyback. And now is a great time because they can get loans at 7% maybe. And they can actually do it in Europe or US and get it at 3% also. Clear? Questions? Doubts?
It's clear.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Any other questions if you guys went through the previous videos or whatever? Anything else? Open for questions now. I've shared some videos on primary market, secondary market, and fractional reserve system. So we will go through them. And we kind of discussed in brief about primary versus secondary market yesterday. So if any questions on that, if you did some reading or watched some videos, or any questions on that.
So in one of the videos for the primary versus secondary, I think there was something called spot market and future market. I'm not sure the terminology, but it was the video from the lady, and she said something that about the secondary market. There are different types, or
yes. So basically, a spot market is basically where you buy and sell for immediate use. And futures. So there is a video on FNO that we did, Ashrar. Did you watch that? Where we covered forwards, futures, options, and swaps. There should be 3 videos.
No.
Yeah. So your spot market is your normal equity market, and your futures market is your FNO market, where you trade in derivatives, which is a different asset class compared to equities. So like I had mentioned earlier, there are 5 different parts to a financial market in a broad way, which is currencies, commodities, derivatives, equities, and fixed income. So derivatives is related to your futures market, and your equities is related to the spot market. And derivatives can be again on any asset class. It can be on currencies, it can be on commodities also.
So what are the asset classes again? Can you say them again? So,
you have currencies,
yeah,
commodities,
yeah,
equities, and fixed income.
Okay.
Derivatives is kind of a product which has all the 4 asset classes.
Okay.
So you can have a derivative on commodity, you can have a derivative on currency, you can have a derivative on an equity, and you can have a derivative on fixed income also.
Okay, got it.
There is a new asset class altogether as well. Nishant don't like it, which is crypto.
No, I didn't say I don't like crypto, Nimit. So there is a difference, right? I just say that I don't see it having a future where it can replace money as such. It will not be allowed to replace the current monetary system. It can be, as I said earlier, it can be a store of value like gold, but do you really need so many stores of value? You have gold, you have platinum, you have silver. How many stores of value do you actually need? Even real estate is a store of value, right? In a lot of ways. Land is a store of value. So how many stores of value will you need? But yeah, still people are playing in it. So let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm tracking this. I think Bitcoin was at $2 in 2010 or 11. So I'm tracking it from that time. So it's not that I don't follow that market. But 10 years, it hasn't grown much, right? So that is the point. This is like the dot-com bubble. 2 years ago, everybody was talking about blockchain. Now, do you hear anyone talking about blockchain? So the technologies have become a fad, right? People talk about AI for a couple of years. Right now, what is the most buzzword? IoT I have been hearing for 12 years now. But how much has it penetrated? So there's a lot of buzzwords going around. Some people talk about machine learning, some people talk about NLP, some people talk about deep learning. So yeah, that's a different topic altogether.
but that's the truth and that's the future, right? The AI, ML, and the blockchain as well. I mean,
Yeah, but till how much, right? That is the thing. So I was just reading that in India, they have only started using mechanized farming this year because they were forced due to labor inability, in unavailability rather, because labor was not available. And even now there is a lot of shortage of labor. I just shared an article today where exporters are getting orders, but they are not getting the labor. Factories are running at 60%, 65%.
yeah, that will tend to happen in future.
Yeah, so anyways, so coming back to the topic, so as there are no questions, I will start this new topic, which is fractional reserve banking. This is very interesting. So I will go slowly and I will expect all of you to read this. I will share some videos also because this is not a very easy concept to understand. So be very attentive in this because otherwise it will go all over your head. So I will start, or are there any other questions? We have 15 minutes, but I will probably take 30 minutes. So till 4:45, I will talk about it. No questions? Or sorry, rather, any other questions?
No. Sorry. Nothing.
Okay. But guys, please go through the older videos, especially applicable to people who have joined newly.
How can I do that, Nishant?
Most of the videos are there in Skype, or we will share the YouTube link. Can one of you share the YouTube link on the Skype chat, please? Whoever
Nishant,
has it.
I'm uploading all the videos, so I will be sharing. I'm just on the process of uploading. I already started uploading the videos. I will do it.
Fair enough, Ranjit, but we can share the link, right? At least up to 30 days anyway, Skype has it. And before that are all there on YouTube. So we will share the link, Venkat. It's a YouTube link. You can start going through them.
Yeah.
Okay, start with the oldest first.
Nishant,
Okay.
regarding to current topic which you opened, fractional reserve banking, is this topic is already mentioned to the participant today. So if you bring up the random topic, maybe the guys who are not able to join, maybe they might be interesting on this topic. They will be missing this topic. So if you dare tell them what will be covered today, so that.
Yeah, so today the key agenda was to cover that slide of HCL versus Infi and then take questions and cover the primary and the secondary market. Okay, so I take your point. So then, okay, we will do the primary market then. I will not do this one.
I think I don't know. It's covered already in the first few minutes. Did you everyone mention that what are the factors which matters if the IT companies in order to analyze the IT stocks? It's not only about the numbers which are in the books also. There are some other factors to be considered because yesterday I joined at the end of the call. So you mentioned make a list of factors when we are what factors say IT sector stocks to analyze. This was your question, right?
Yes, but basically I wanted to go through this slide, which are the key factors based on the chart here. But yes, there are other factors as well, so which will be covered when we do those sessions, right? When we do the sectoral analysis. Anyways, Ishwar was working, so he is not here. He was working on that template, right? That for each industries we will have key parameters. Like when you are reviewing IT service company, which all factors to consider, like what is the margin, what is the net profit margin, what is the profit per employee, revenue per employee. All of those factors will come in ideally when you are evaluating an IT service company. So that is a different topic in itself. So that let that list be prepared and then we will talk about it. Okay. Cool. So fractional reserve, we'll do it next Saturday and Sunday. So I will just do primary market. So between next Saturday and Sunday, we will cover fractional reserve banking and primary and secondary market. So primary market is the part of the capital market that everybody can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that deals with the issuance and sale of equity-backed securities to investors directly by the issuer. Now, this part is not completely correct. It is not just equity. So even in the bond market, the same rule applies. So there is a primary market for equities and there is also a primary market for bonds. Okay. So what that first line primarily talks about is that whenever you issue new shares, new securities, it is known as a primary market issuance. To give you a very simple example, I have a company X and I need another 300 crores as equity, and I plan to sell each share at 100 rupees. So I will issue 3 crore new shares at 100 rupees to get 300 crores from the market. That is a primary market issue. Questions? Similarly, I could decide that instead of raising this money as an equity, I want to raise it as debt. So I will issue 3 crore as bonds, 3 crore bonds, and each valued at 100 rupees. Same thing. So the only difference is in case 1, it is a primary market issue in the equity market. In the case 2, it is a primary market issue in the debt market. Okay, and this point highlights it very clearly. Investors buy securities that were never traded before.
It's okay. How is it different from IPO?
Now, IPO is the process of taking a private company public. So IPO is a process. Don't confuse IPO with a primary market. So think of a primary market as your say you have a market, right?
Already,
Say
okay.
a fish market where see a market is a place where buyer and seller come together. Okay. Now say you can say a primary market is like a wholesale market. It's not a very perfect example, but I'm trying to give you a real life example where there are only few people involved. And then after the wholesale market, then you have a retail market where there are a larger number of participants involved. So a primary market has fewer participants and it is a one-time activity, whereas wholesale market is not a one-time activity. So that is why I said it's not a perfect example. Whereas a secondary market is like a retail market where every day, every minute trading is happening.
Okay.
So your secondary market, you can say, is like your 24/7 shopping complex where you can go and buy stuff at any time. Whereas your primary market is like your yearly sale. It happens only once in a year. So like Black Friday in the US, for example. So it's like a one-day sale. Something like that. Okay. So this is the key point here, that these securities were not traded before. Okay, which is not 100% true, but yeah, let's assume this. No, actually it is. Okay. So the securities which were never traded before and new securities were created. Okay, so this applies both to the equity and to the debt market. Okay, I will edit this article on Wikipedia. Primary markets create long-term instruments through which corporate entities raise funds from the capital market. Also, when I mention the capital market, it has both equities and fixed income as part of the market. Okay, it is also known as the new issue market because new shares are created. Any questions for anyone?
You were mentioning here there are two ways of creating the capital. One is equity and another is debt, right? Debt. So in the equity, you issues directly the equities. For example, 100 one share is 100 rupees or whatever, and you will sell. You will ask the persons to buy that equity. And in the debts, these are the concept of debentures comes in picture, right?
Correct. So it's the same thing. Even in the debt, you issue debenture or a bond or whatever, and then public will buy it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
No, can you give some real example or where it happens, how would have someone with some company?
Okay. So, okay.
So that I can relate. Yeah.
Sure. You are in which country?
Sweden.
Okay. So yeah, have you heard of any of these companies? Recall Capital, Thunderbolt. This is the Swedish flag, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. Let's take this Thunderful group. So this company came out with an IPO, and well, I should sign up. So for people who follow India, you had this Rosari Biotech, or you had the SBI cards. Last few months, not much IPO has happened. The last one was this Rosari Biotech. But yeah, basically, so yesterday I think somebody has shared the draft red herring prospectus for Rosari Biotech. So you guys can go through it. So one second.
It's 372 pages.
Yes, it is 372 pages. So yeah, but this is not opening up. So let me pull it to the India one only. This is Venkat, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but what is your question? You want?
No, you said no. This yeah, primary markets, and it's a new listing. So yes, some examples in a real example. I just know where it happens or recent on example
Okay.
I asked. So now you said it's.
Actually, I will give I would like to answer that question because I was in the same position a couple of days back. Maybe you can correct if someone can correct. I'll answer that. I think what Venkat want to know is what with a practical example. Actually, I'll just take an example like which we had in couple of the sessions back. For example, Venkat, you are having a some Venkat company, and you are already running some business, some 100 crore business. You are running some private company through your family or something. So now you want to expand your company because you see a kind of an potential growth happening down the line. So what you do is you want to see how to raise that capital now. Remaining, for example, now you already have invested 100 crores as a capital, and now you want to expand and you want to see how you can accumulate another 200 crores of capital, so that you see a potential growth over here. So now you want to raise 200 crores additional capital, which you already invested 100, which you are already invested in having capital of 100 crores. So now, what are the ways to acquire the 200 crores additional capital? Is there are two ways. One is equity, and the second is debt. What is meant by equity in the sense, you are going to issue a certain number of shares, and you will I mean it's like a document. Basically it's a document, like you are giving that you are giving that documents to the shareholders, and they will give you in turn the money for it's like they are purchasing that share, and they will invest that money into your company. So that is one way, kind of an equity. And the second,
so it's kind of
is,
interest-free loan.
that is again complex things. If you go, that is a different layers are there. Just think that it is just an equity as of now.
Okay.
Yeah, yes, there is again, there are a lot of things. If you go in down the line, practicality of it, it's like you are opening a company and you have to think all those things. But as of now, we can take a comma over here, and we have to expand by ourselves mostly, or we can ask specific questions to Nishant, or in this group they can expand actually. That's what I assume, I think. And the second way of raising is debts. So what is debts is debentures. It's like it's like a loan, taking a loan, but it's like indirectly there are like, for example, you want to take 200 crores, you want to issue 200 crores as debentures. So it's like you have one party. Think your uncle want to issue 200 crores of debt. So then what you are giving as an option is 10% wants to purchase that option. So then in the debentures, there are kind of an different, again, secured and unsecured. Now let's not go into that all things. But what I say is, in the debenture, it's like taking a loan. And what are the, and again there are like certain fees will be exchanged and certain benefits are there in that. So as of now you can understand this, but it's really a lot of layers are there in that down the line if you want to understand that.
Okay, right. I'll go through whatever Nishant says, right, the videos, and then I'll try to understand.
Yes, I shared it, Venkat, but I still didn't get your question. So where was I? I lost my chain of thought.
You said about primary market, and you said it's it's not a regular deal every day. It's not happening, right?
Exactly.
You said it's happening once in a year or one time. And again, you said it's not IPO. That's why I got confused. Or I want to understand where it is. If it's not IPO, it's not in regular shares, sale and purchase. Then what?
No, it is IPO. So okay. 1 second. I think that is where you got confused. So
Yes,
primary market is a market. You understood what is primary market, right?
It's for a new. It was not sold earlier. It's a new equity or debt, right?
No. So primary market, understand in a very simple term, primary market means whenever a company want to issue new securities, it has to go to the primary market. It cannot do it in the secondary market.
Okay. Right.
Okay. So it is like when you want to buy vegetables, you go to the vegetable market, right? You cannot go to the fish market. So primary market is your vegetable market. If you want to buy fish, you go to the fish market, which is your secondary market. So it is different type of market with different purpose. So anytime a company wants to issue new shares, it will go to the primary market in the simplest way. Okay.
Okay. In real world,
World.
Real
world. No. Wait, Srihari. So in real world, in the primary market, how the company will do this is through an initial public offer.
Okay. Right. Okay. Then that's what. Okay. Since I heard initially it was not IPO, that's why I raised this question.
No, IPO is the process.
Okay.
It is like you will go to the vegetable market in your car. You can also go in a train. You can go whatever, right? So the process of going to the
not be also, right? It need not be also, right? Primary markets can still be without IPO also, right?
Yes, but I don't want to confuse him right now, right? So let's not make it complicated for him. First, let him understand this part, then he will understand the next part. So the one of the ways to raise money in the primary market is IPO. There are other ways also. So like I said, right, you can go to, so vegetable market is the primary market. You can choose to go in your car, which is the IPO. You can choose to go by train, which is offer for sale. And you can choose to go by bicycle, which is FPO, which is follow on public offer, so on and so forth. But we will not get into all of that today.
Okay,
right. We can, that is part of the IPO, so we'll get into that. Yes, we
Nishant?
to cover this. Yeah.
I have one question here. I know, does SEBI will involve anything while defining the price of a share? I know it differs, it matters on how the shares are divided and everything, but does SEBI has any influence on pricing the stock price in the market?
No. So let's take the recent example. This Rosari Biotech, the IPO was at 425. They could have fixed 400 or 450. SEBI cannot decide that. SEBI only says that for your company to list, whatever number of shares you are offering in the IPO, so say I don't know how much this Rosari Biotech offered, you can get it from the DRHP, but say for example at 425 they offered 1 crore shares. SEBI says that out of that 1 crore shares, at least 80% should be sold. If less than 80% is sold, you will not be allowed to list. And before going for an IPO, you should be profitable for the last 3 years or something like that. They have some terms and conditions. So as long as the company can show 3 years audited results, and it should be audited, obviously. So if they can show 3 years audited results with profitability, so you can Google this, SEBI rules for listing. But the pricing and all is determined, how many shares to issue and what price is determined by the issuing company, and obviously not just the issuing company, their underwriters or their people who are managing there.
No, because just I'm wondering, because like Reliance, if who has a huge good reputation in the market, let's say they will list Reliance Retail for 2,000 rupees in the market when Reliance Industries itself is listed in 2,000. The current market price of Reliance Industries is 2,000. What if Reliance Retail came up with an IPO idea and they know that it will go to 2,000, so with the consulting investment bankers, they might start price as a.
How does it matter? That is where you get confused. Share price is not at all an indicator, right? Reliance, which company you said? Jio Retail.
Reliance Retail itself. This retail.
Yeah, so retail can be listed at 20,000 also, right? Why does it matter? We already discussed, right? What matters is the total number of shares. So if the total market cap of retail is, say the total number of shares is 1 crore and they price each share at 50,000, it is 50,000 crores, right? So total value of retail will be 50,000 crores. And they can list out of 10 lakh, 1 crore shares, Reliance can sell only 10 lakh shares. So which means the IPO will be for 5,000 crores. So why does the share price matter? Anyways, based on the share price of retail, the ratio will be decided, right? So if Reliance Retail is listed at 50,000, for 100 shares of Reliance Industry, you will get only 1 retail share, something like that. That is how they will decide. You understood the point?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, it's like how much money they want to claim or get from equity market plus the number of shares they want to raise. Accordingly, they will set up the price of the initial share price, right? That's what my understanding.
No, those are very complicated here. First, understand the basics. Don't get into how they price it and all. But yeah, in the simplest of terms, as I mentioned, say I am a company, I want to raise 300 crores from the equity market, and I decide to issue only 1 crore shares, which means I will price each share at 300 rupees. So 1 crore into 300, I will get 300 crores. Simple. Questions? Any questions here?
No.
Right? And the same thing I can do for debt. Instead of equity, I can choose to issue debt. So I will price each of my bond at 300 rupees and issue 1 crore bonds and raise 300 crore. Okay. Why bond versus equity? For that, we have already done a session, but I will share some videos also, which you can go through. So here is the SEBI guidelines for unlisted company. So minimum net worth should be 1 crore. Minimum average operating profit must be more than 15 crore in at least 3 of the 5 years. Okay, so this is the key reason why Flipkart and all is not able to do IPO in India. And it is why I am of the firm opinion that we should have. So in London, they have something called AIM, okay, which is basically, and NASDAQ and all allows anyone and everyone to list. Okay, so ideally, India should have another exchange other than NSE, which we can call ABCD, whatever, where we should allow all these loss-making companies to list. And this will answer, Kunal, your question when you were asking, right, why there is no money coming to being raised from India. So all this money will be then raised from that exchange. But this is basically the laxity of our central government to not allow something like this to function. And now is the right time to do it. So ideally, if I am the finance minister, I'll make interest rates as 0. Okay, in fact, start punishing the savers and open this AIM to ensure that capital is utilized much more efficiently by people taking much more risk. And this will not take much time. We have the technology, we have everything available.
I
But
think
unfortunately, because we don't allow these companies go and list in NASDAQ or Singapore Stock Exchange and all, where they allow loss-making companies to list. And
Yeah.
this exchange will be separate because SEBI
But
is right in trying to protect the retail investor of India. So this will be a separate exchange where only you can have higher thresholds and all, like minimum
Nishant,
10 lakhs.
you always say to protect the customer, SEBI will be doing something like that. Just a small question. This lower circuit concept is there, right? Do you think it's a, if they want to save the customers, I think they should give the possibility to sell the stocks. At least you can't buy the stock to go for upper circuit. Upper circuit can be limited. If they want to save the retail investors, in my opinion, SEBI doesn't care about saving the customers or retail investors. But you are
No,
saying
no,
save it.
yeah, but until now, retail
no.
investors was
How
much
how
lower, right?
how are you
Yeah.
saying that, Ranjit? See, by having a lower circuit,
Mhm.
I am ensuring, right, that in one day you cannot lose more than 5%. Tomorrow the stock will open, right? You can sell it tomorrow, na? In one day you will lose only 5% of your investment, right? In US you can lose 90%.
No, I tried it. Even in the when the market open itself, the stock will be in the flatted. So you can't sell.
Arey, that is because you bought a kachada stock, right? Now don't get into all that discussion
Whatever
with
it
me.
might be, kachada or non-kachada, that's one. But what I'm telling is SEBI is, but you always say that SEBI wants to save, SEBI wants to save. I don't know
Correct, right?
how.
Correct, right? See, by having a upper and lower circuit, whom are we saving? You are reducing the stock volatility, right?
I think in order to, that's what I'm telling. If you want, they want to really save the retail investors. Don't limit for lower circuit. Don't
Why not?
let's
Then you were saying that you can lose 100, you can start with 100 rupees in the morning and end up at 20 rupees in the night. Do you want to do that? You don't want to do that, right? That is what US does. We are not US. And anyways, that is a separate discussion. But yeah, so this
But
basically,
most bearish or bullish trends are purely hype. So if the stock is falling, everyone wants to sell. Just to cool that hype down and maybe postpone it to next day, by when people will wake up and think fresh. Maybe that's the concept behind lower circuit.
yeah, Dipti, a lot of times in India and even in your a lot of other countries, it is not just hype, right? People can play around. So all these lower circuit stocks are companies with market cap of 100 crore, 50 crore, and a daily volume of 2 lakh shares. So one guy can actually control the market. So a lot of these things happen. So
I'm not talking about exceptions. Generally, if one stock price is falling, everyone wants to sell, and like that.
yeah,
So
that
it's
herd
crowd
mentality
mentality.
also comes in.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but having a lower and upper circuit is definitely in the interest of the retail investor. So Ranjit, I will have to explain Ranjit separately on this. So there is a reason for it, Ranjit. You should read more in depth. There are more articles. I will share some. But yeah, so where was I? So yeah, so that is the whole purpose of a primary market, to allow companies to issue new shares, and it is done via an IPO. Okay, so here they have mentioned about public issue, rights issue, and preferential allotment. These are the three ways of hitting the primary market. And then you have the secondary market, where basically trading happens on a daily basis. So which you see, like for example, Reliance or Infosys, which are all listed on the NSE. NSE is again a platform, or it is an exchange which allows trading of shares. So it is electronic these days. So it is all electronic format where you can buy and sell shares at any moment. So this is done to provide liquidity. So for example, I bought 100 shares of Infosys yesterday. After 5 days, the price has gone up. I want to sell so that I can utilize that profit for my other purposes. So this is the function of the primary market. So this is the key point here. Fundamentally, why this is not getting selected? Yeah. Fundamentally, the secondary market mesh the investor preference. So read this line. This kind of sums it up. Okay, we are almost done. So I will leave you with one thought. Think of a scenario if there was no secondary market and you bought Reliance shares, you would actually be dependent on the company to buy it back from you. That is the only way you will be able to get out. And that is the purpose the secondary market serves to the public. Okay, or any company for that matter. In a very simple layman term, it is like you bought a car from Maruti or BMW, or people in Sweden, you bought a Volvo and you want to sell it back. You want to sell it off after using it for 1 year. If there was no secondary market, the secondary market is basically you can resell it, right? The used car market. If that market did not exist, the only option you would have is to go back to the manufacturer and say, boss, take back this car and give me a new car. But obviously that will not give you the correct price. And also you will not always be able to do it because the manufacturer can always say, boss, I have a lot of old cars already sitting with me. So you come back after 2 months. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So I think we are done with primary and secondary market also. So next Saturday, we will start with the fractional reserve system and how does this work? That's a very interesting concept. I have shared a few articles. I will share a few videos as well. So please go through them. I have probably shared a few videos already, and then we can discuss in detail. And then if time permits, I will also try to do what is an FPO and what is a OFS in the next weekend. OFS is offer for sale. And after that weekend, we will try to do PPO, what is a pre-placement offer, and then suggest some topics. We can also do VC, what is the role of a VC and all that. So I don't know. Vaibhav, we need to plan out the agenda for next couple of weeks. So maybe just drop a note. So guys, please drop your
like
comments.
RSU also in this when you are explaining the other all these topics. I think this is also related to RSUs.
Yeah, we can do RSUs also, restricted stock units and all. So ESOPs and all, then we can do RSU, ESOPs, all of that in one session. So Vaibhav, can you make a note? Vaibhav is there. Vaibhav, Sid is there. Where is Sid?
Yeah, sure. We'll talk. We'll discuss about it.
Yeah. So make a note of these few points. RSUs, ESOPs. Yeah, we'll see. Make a note. So we will have to cover. And Vaibhav, you remember when I was doing that convertible bonds, we had so many topics. I hope you guys have added that to the agenda. So convertible bonds were left, right? We left convertible bonds at, we had not started the types of convertible bonds, right? Vanilla and all. We just went, we just stopped at the high level overview of convertible bonds. So that is also we can continue.
Yes.
So I think next week's agenda, these are things. Yeah. So Srihari, maybe you can make a note and share it with Vaibhav. Okay. So we will do fractional reserve banking, continue with FPOs. What is a follow-on public offer and offer for sale, and continue with convertible bonds. I think that will cover next Saturday, Sunday. And if any questions come up. Okay. Yeah. I have 5-6 minutes. If you guys want to ask any questions, I'm okay to wait. If there are any questions from anyone.
I mean, actually, because this is my fourth this thing, I just wanted to give my understanding on the primary market and IPO and the secondary market. Maybe you can correct Nishant and whoever it is. So the primary market is just where 50 less than 50 holders shares will be there, and it's more like a private limited company. And this shares, whatever the capital or the shares will be accessed by only this 50%, or it's only limited to this 50%, and it's more internally audited, and there is
no, wait, 1 second. So this is not the primary market. This is what you're talking is a private limited company, not primary market. So what you're talking, all this is the features of a private limited company.
Okay, I got it. Yes, I mean, so you mean in private limited company, but it can exist as an primary market also, right? Private limited company.
No, don't confuse primary market and secondary market with the type of company, right? Private limited company has not even reached the primary market, right? Primary market and secondary market are concept related to a public limited company. Only once a company decides to go from private to public. When a company is private, it is just private. It has got nothing to do with primary market or secondary market, because these are concepts we use for public limited companies. So for a private limited company, you can only buy and sell shares among a limited number of people, and with the restriction always that number of shareholders should not exist 50. So say currently 15 people own shares in a private limited company, and all of us own 1 crore shares. So we are 15 friends, or say 8 of us are there in the call. 8 of us, each of us bought 1 crore shares in a company, and we started the company. Now say out of 8 of us, one wants to sell. Either I can sell to the 7 of you, or any of you 7, or a group of 7, or any combination, or I can find a 9th person who can buy the shares from me, or I can do a partial sell also. I need not sell the whole 1 crore, right? I may want to sell only 30 lakhs. So I may find a 9th person or a 10th person, but I have to find those people on my own, because it is not easy to trade, because there is no available market. There is no primary or secondary market. So I have to use my contacts to find 2 people who will be ready to buy the shares. Because I am below the number of 50 shareholders, I can do that. But the moment, say scenario 2, we already are 50. So each of us owns 1 crore shares. Now I want to sell. I have to convince any of the other 49 to buy from me, because I cannot sell it to 51%, because that is not allowed.
Okay. So that's why I'm going to primary market.
That is why you are deciding to convert your private limited company into a public limited company.
Okay, so when we are converting a private limited company into public company, then this primary and secondary market comes, right?
Exactly. So then when you decide to convert a private limited company to a public limited company, the way to do it is to list the shares. To list the shares, you need to come out with an IPO or a FPO or a OFS.
Okay, then these are still these are all primary markets. IPO, FPO, OFS, PPO, RSUs are all.
PPO is before the primary market. Primary market is primarily 3: IPO, which is an initial public offer; FPO, which is a follow-on public offer; and offer for sale. Offer for sale will be like in the example I said, all 50 of us own 1 crore shares. The company does not need any more money. But because we 50 are shareholders of the company, we have a board and all, right? So we convince the board that, boss, out of 50, 10 of us want to sell, and we are unable to sell because it's a private limited company. So please convert this private limited company to a public limited company so that we can sell our shares. So when we want to sell our shares, we will go for a OFS, which is an offer for sale, where instead of the company selling new shares, the 10 of us will be sharing our shares. And this shares will be sold to the public. So which means thousands and lakhs of people can buy their shares. So basically we need to create demand for these 10 crore shares, and any number of people can buy it, and we will exit, and they will be the new shareholders.
Okay.
So these are three things you said, right? OFS, IPO, and one more?
FPO.
What is the full form?
Srihari will share it. Srihari, Google these 3.
Follow-on public offer.
Can you share the Wikipedia articles for the 3 on the chat?
I will share.
Yeah. Okay. So continue. So
you mean
sorry, small question here.
No, Venkat, please go ahead. Yeah.
Ranjit has a question.
Nishant, just a small question. It's the same thing with any other company. I think when the FPO was introduced, definitely the current market price should go down, because technically the new shares will be introduced and new volume will be coming up in the market, and the FPO price is always lower than the current market price. this leads to correct for the current market price, right?
Correct, yes, because it's a simple concept, right? You have 100 crore shares right now,
Yeah.
and the company issued 10 crore more share, which means 100 crore share will become 110 crore. So your share price should fall by 10%. So that is why companies do not prefer FPO. They will only go for FPO in only certain circumstance. But even when a company goes for an FPO, they need not dilute 10%, right? So if the current share is 100 crores, the company can issue only 2 crore new shares. In that case, the dilution will only be 2%. And if the company is able to prove that that 2 crore shares additional that they are selling, they will be utilizing that money for expansion of the business, and that is the most best way to raise the money, and the shareholders are convinced, the share price may not go down also. It may stay constant.
Just a small question. For example, in order to save the retail investors, SEBI could have come up with some law, right? You can't raise a FPO. Like, for example, in the case of Yes Bank, the current market price was almost.
Arey, Yes Bank is an exceptional circumstance. Don't go there. That is a fraud case. Fraud case, don't come. That is a fraud case. Don't go there. I am talking about normal company. So don't go to fraud case. Like for Reliance, right? They did not go for FPO, na? They went for rights issue for the same reason. They did not want dilution of owner stake and all that. And share price also went up, right? So generally, instead of a FPO, companies will prefer rights issue. Okay, Srihari, share the rights issue link also. Okay, so guys, go through all these 4 in detail. I will cover some of it in the next few classes, but these 4 should be very crystal clear to all of you. What is the importance of IPO? When a company goes for an FPO? Why a company goes for a FPO? Why a company goes for IPO? How a company goes for IPO? How a company goes for FPO? Why a company goes for OFS? How a company goes for OFS? Why a company goes for right issue? How a company goes for right issue? Okay, so we are done. So we will continue next week. Okay, quick questions, it's fine. Srihari, you can ask quick questions, not summary. Okay, so you started to summarize, but if you have a question, I will answer. Summary, no, we will do it next week.
No, I think we have the agenda for the next week. I think the first point which you mentioned was the what was that? Fractional reserve banking, and then the FPO, OFS, and IPO. These 3 points, right?
Correct. Agenda, anyways, Vaibhav will share, so that is fine. And if any of you wants to work with Vaibhav for the agenda because he needs some help, Srihari, Ashrar, if you guys want to help him out, please work with him. That will be helpful for him also.
I mean, it will take some time to onboard, but because I also have some other things in my list, but I will eventually onboard. I will increase my time here.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just saying, if you have suggestions for agenda, if you want some points to be added, talk to him. He can help you out.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Great, guys. Have a nice remaining Sunday, and then talk to you next Saturday.
Yeah,
bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.
See you.